really terrible at these types of things, so...
Elizabeth Halsey has quit her job as a teacher. She's only been there for a year and is an awful teacher and colleague. She's engaged and wants to be a stay-at-home wife. She arrives home and finds her future mother-in-law is there. She spent $16,000 in the last month, and her fiancé's mother thinks Elizabeth only marries for the money. She's put on the spot and can't remember his birthday, which convinces him that she doesn't truly love him.
Mark, I'm pregnant.
Bullshit.
She's forced to return as a teacher and is immediately rude and careless. She pretends she didn't talk to anyone last year because she was planning her wedding and lies about why she's no longer getting married. A fellow teacher, Lynn, offers to take her for lunch, and they chat about men. Elizabeth is a teacher because of the short hours and long holidays. She's decided that her real job is finding a man who will care for her. She gets dressed up and goes to a bar full of wealthy businessmen.
Why don't you introduce me to your single coworker? 1 o'clock.
She turns down a married man for someone else. They're getting along well until she discovers he plans on quitting his high-paying job so he can pursue a career in healthcare. She rejects him and returns to the bar to find someone else. She's hungover on the first day of school and is given a batch of cookies made by one of her students' parents. She spits it out, calling it horrible, and has the kids watch a film about teaching. During lunch, the PE teacher, Russell, asks her on a date, but he's not paid well, so she claims to avoid dating colleagues. He asks about her ex-fiancé, and she makes up another lie about why they broke up. Another teacher, Amy, passive-aggressively asks her about showing a movie in class, but is taken aback by Elizabeth's direct and careless approach. She heads to class and sees a handsome new teacher. She discovers he's rich through a wealthy family business and becomes charming. He's still getting over his last girlfriend. She thinks this is because his ex has big boobs.
How would you like to pay?
That's absurd. I'm a teacher, not a drug dealer.
She visits a plastic surgeon and wants to book an appointment, but lacks the money. She calls her father, ex-fiancé, and anyone else to borrow money for breast implants. She's been forced out of her fiancé's mansion and is now living in a small apartment with a roommate she found on Craigslist. At school, she continues showing the kids films about great teachers. One of her students, Sasha, invites her to support the car wash for the 7th grade field trip. Elizabeth doesn't care until she finds out the last car wash made a lot of money. She visits the principal, who casually asks if she was showing students movies during the first week of school. She admits to showing snippets and tries to convince him that films are the new books. He seems skeptical, so she takes note of his love of dolphins and pretends to like them too.
Brother, Ajax.
What a great story.
She manipulates him and gets on his good side, so he'll let her supervise the 7th grade car wash. He initially says no, as Amy's been doing it for years, so she changes tactics and suggests they give Amy a break. He thinks it's a sweet gesture and agrees.
Holy shit.
She arrives at the school car wash in very little clothing and teases the customers with sexy dances as she cleans their cars. Justin arrives in his fancy car, and he's impressed. Elizabeth thinks he's talking about her outfit, but he's referring to the car wash. She suggests they go out for drinks, but is turned down. He says he is not ready for a relationship, but promises he's worth it if she's willing to wait. When everyone's gone, she counts the money, and Amy sees this from a distance. The next day, she barges into the men's bathroom and tells the principal she thinks Elizabeth stole some money from the car wash. He says they earned more money than the year before, and she needs evidence the next time she interrupts him in the one place at work where he has privacy. Lynn asks how things are going with Scott, and Elizabeth casually says she'll comfort him before they have sex. During class, she's surprised by someone bringing her practice test for the upcoming statewide exam.
Hey, zip it. Zip your shit.
She makes the kids do the test while she gets bored as she waits. At lunch, Amy speaks to Sasha, who's crying. Elizabeth calls her fake, and Lynn agrees, but admits Amy seems to care about the kids. Scott greets them, but Elizabeth is annoyed when Amy joins the conversation, and the two of them have a secret handshake. He asks about Sasha, and she repeats the advice she gave about accepting herself as she is. She embarrasses Elizabeth by mentioning she told her the same thing when she found out about the boob job. Elizabeth is annoyed but hides it as Amy pretends she thought everyone knew.
My name is Elizabeth Halsey. Any questions?
At the parent-teacher meeting, Sasha's mother asks about plans for the state test and if she's going to do anything besides show movies in class. She lies and says she was hired for being excellent at her job and makes up a story about her secret teaching method. One of the parents asks her to give special attention to his son and secretly pays her. She gets the idea of manipulating parents into paying her to provide extra attention to their kids. She sells them things from the lost and found to get cash, among other money-making schemes. Amy gives Scott her favorite book as a Christmas gift. He loves it, and they share a special moment. Elizabeth is smoking weed in her car when Sasha knocks on the window and gives her cookies for Christmas. She says it's medicinal and, in a casual conversation, asks if the teenager is doing what she wants or what her parents want. Sasha's unsure, but is abruptly left behind when her teacher gets tired of the conversation. At the school dance, Russell asks if she wants to dance, but she says no. Scott comes over and she immediately dances with him. He asks to speak with her in private and admits he has a crush on Amy. She lies and says Amy's a lesbian.
Just try it. Try it.
Please, don't stop pressuring her.
She smokes weed with Russell and they get along well. He's funny, but she doesn't want to go out with him because he's not rich. She accidentally runs into a student, Garrett, and his mother on Christmas Day and is invited to lunch. She reluctantly accepts, and his mother makes him read out poetry he wrote. They're left alone. She steals a dolphin statue from the mantelpiece and is rude, but tells him some harsh truths. Scott invites her to the bar to see the band he's in with some other teachers. She offers Lynn some terrible advice about confidence with men that surprisingly works. Russell makes her laugh, and they get along well, but she still refuses to date him. Scott sings a terrible song he wrote, but it's aimed at his new girlfriend Amy, which makes Elizabeth angry. She finds out from Lynn that the teacher whose students score the highest in the state test will get a huge pay bonus. At school, she suddenly becomes strict and uses tough, unconventional ways to teach her kids. Amy and Scott talk to the other teachers and act as though they're creative and adventurous when they're shallow and boring in reality.
Last weekend we went for a drive.
They don't even pick up that Russell is sarcastically teasing them. Scott compliments Elizabeth on working hard with her students, and she pretends she's been doing this all along. Amy gets angry and asks Sasha for information that could get Elizabeth in trouble. She can't say anything, and Amy promises her extra credit if she thinks of something. She remembers Elizabeth smoking weed in the school parking lot and adds that it was okay because it was medicinal. Amy reports Elizabeth's drug use to the principal and insists they check her fake marijuana prescription or take a drug test. He's doubtful and needs more proof before accusing a teacher of something this big. He shows her a beautiful glass dolphin figurine and says Elizabeth is sweet.
You see, she is manipulating you through the use of dolphins.
No, what I see.
She tries to tell him that Elizabeth is manipulating him, but he brushes her off. Elizabeth is upset that the kids did badly on the practice test she gave them. She decides to get the answers to the state test so she can win the prize for best teacher by meeting with a state education representative. She makes up a reason as to why he must give her the test, and he agrees, but will only give it to her the day after it's released. She tricks him by flirting, so he'll take her back to his office. When they get there, she spikes his drink and steals the test answers when he passes out. Elizabeth wins the prize, which surprises both Amy and Russell. Amy and Scott are chaperones for the field trip, and Elizabeth gets upset. She has enough money for the boob job and books the appointment. She sneaks in a poisoned apple to Amy, who breaks out in a rash and ends up having to cancel, so Elizabeth offers to step in. Amy sneaks into the school. She switches her desk with Elizabeth's and has a locksmith come in to open it for her. Inside is evidence of Elizabeth cheating, so she investigates and discovers her lies. The principal finally believes her. On the field trip, Elizabeth discovers Scott is an idiot. He awkwardly makes out with her in his room, and she sneakily calls Amy from his phone. Russell sees her coming out of Scott's room and is no longer interested in her. Amy hears the voicemail of Scott cheating on her the next day. During the field trip, Garrett confesses his love for the popular girl who used to be friends with him when they were younger. She laughs and he runs away. Elizabeth goes after him, and they have a heart-to-heart. She tells him that the girl he likes is superficial, which she knows because she used to be that girl. She tells him he's sensitive, but will only find it beneficial in college. To lessen his embarrassment, she gives him her bra and tells everyone she caught him with an older student from a different school. Garrett whips out the bra, and the other kids congratulate him. Russell guesses it was Elizabeth who helped him, and they share a flirty, tender moment.
Amy.
I know.
Amy shows up and tells Elizabeth she knows about the stolen test and that there will be a serious meeting with the principal. Elizabeth blackmails the representative with pictures of him naked while drugged. Before the meeting, she discovers that Amy switched their desks.
This is very, very bad, Elizabeth.
At the meeting, the representative pretends he made everything up, and Elizabeth is off the hook. She once again manipulates them into not doing anything further except to do a drug search of the teachers' classrooms. A sniffer dog is brought in and finds drugs in Elizabeth's desk, which is now in Amy's class. Amy reveals she's transferring at the end-of-year meeting and pretends it's her choice. Scott asks Elizabeth out, seeing that Amy is transferring, but she dismisses him. Russell teases her about how terrible she is as a teacher and should look for another job. She asks him to go on a date with her and they kiss. The next year, Elizabeth is in a steady relationship with Russell and is good friends with Lynn. She starts her new job as the school's guidance counselor.